What's up guys, welcome back to Paul's Hardware. It is high time we did another build, so that's what I'm doing today with the parts that you see laid out here before you, or me. We got a brand new case from Fractal, the Pop 2 Vision that just launched this month, but perhaps more important than the hardware for this build is going to be the software that I install once it is assembled, and that's, oh yeah, it's gonna be Linux.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by the Paul's Hardware store on paulshardware.net, the only official source for Paul's Hardware merchandise. Tantalizing t-shirts, brilliant beer sets, high-quality hoodies, and more, all featuring the classic thumbscrew for tasteful and refined viewers, or the 8-bit thumbscrew for tasteful and refined viewers who hate curves. New designs are added sporadically and at random, so head over to paulshardware.net and get some of that sweet, sweet merch right now. Or not right now, after you watch the video. Either way. That's right, Linux, following up on some promises made towards the beginning of this year because Windows often sucks and Microsoft often makes poor decisions regarding Windows development. So we're going to start out with what is warm and comfortable and familiar for me at least, which is the build process, the hardware. But I have called out some big guns to get some assistance with this build. I talked to Wendell, and I'm going to be sharing a bit of our conversation later in this video. That is Wendell of Level 1 Techs, of course, who is very high up there in terms of knowledge about Linux and respect within the community. But he helped me make sure that the hardware that I was going to be building with was going to be good choices. And the good news is that Linux is pretty broadly compatible with a wide range of hardware that's currently available in terms of PC building. So we are going with an AM5 platform. We're going to be building around the ROG Strix X870-A gaming Wi-Fi motherboard. And yes, this was a fairly aesthetically driven decision because we're putting it in the Pop 2 Vision case from Fractal, which has a nice tempered glass side panel. So we're going to get a nice view of the build inside. And I specifically asked Wendell, I was like, can I make my Linux build pretty? And he said, yes, that's totally okay. So we're going to be pairing that with the Ion 3 Gold power supply, also from Fractal with the white finish. Apart from Wendell's advice, a lot of this hardware was chosen because it is hardware that I already have, such as the 9900X CPU, which is a 12-core from AMD's AM5 lineup. I would have gone with like the 9950X 3D, but we're actually going to be using that for another build that we are taking to Computex. So this is the highest core count CPU that I feel like I will not need to pull out of this build to use anytime relatively soon. Also, it is a CPU that I already had on hand, which is also the case for my memory and SSDs, because memory and SSDs are extremely expensive right now. For the memory, we have a 32GB G.Skill Trident Z5 Neo RGB kit. The Neo kits have AMD Expo settings, so we can set the memory speeds quite easily. Since this is intended to be a workstation that I might maybe eventually replace my existing workstation PC that I do video editing on, I will probably be expanding this memory kit with another 32GB kit in the future, giving us 64 gigs total. For SSDs, I have a Crucial P3 2TB. That's going to be where the operating system gets installed. And then I have a 4TB Lexar NM790 for working drive for games, video, and that sort of thing. For our graphics card, this was one that Wendell definitely recommended. You can, of course, use an NVIDIA graphics card, no problem, but Wendell was like, you know what, if you've got a RX 9070 or 9070 XT, 16 gig is a great choice for getting you more VRAM, of course, but also they play really nice with Linux. And yes, I know that's a fairly broad statement, but this is also the Power Color Red Devil Spectral White, so it's not red, it's not black, it is white. And so that should match the aesthetic of the rest of the build as well. And the last thing you might have spotted down here is actually an add-on card. This is a 4K capture card from Elgato, the 4K60 Pro. Yes, this is also something that I already had on hand, and this is not going to be installed in this build. I have this here to represent that it will be installed in my existing Windows workstation that I have in my main computer room. That way I can do an HDMI pass-through for the monitor I have connected to my newly built Linux system, and that way as I'm dabbling and learning in Linux, I can screen capture stuff so I can share that with you guys. And I want to be as clear and upfront as I can that I'm not making any promises as to when I will be coming back and sharing that Linux experience, but it will happen eventually. And then Joe also pointed out we don't seem to have a CPU cooler. So also, from my stash of hardware on hand, we have the Arctic Liquid Freezer 3 280 ARGB white. Matches the white aesthetic, and yes, the Pop 2 Vision fits a 280 fan radiator combination in the top as well. So there's the parts. Let's get started. Before we start assembling things, let's take a quick look at our Pop 2 Vision case. It's got tempered glass side panels that come off quite easily. And the first thing you're probably going to notice about this case is it has pre-installed fans, and it has these sort of shroud things that are covering up most of the area that is not fan. Both down here on the bottom as well as over here on the side, and those are all set up to be intakes default out of the box. The side ones are also positioned at a bit of an angle. You might be able to tell that from the bottom down there. or perhaps even more so if we look from the front, but that's just going to provide a little bit of directionality for the air to keep it flowing over and towards your components. A very clean looking finish is the impression I'm immediately getting from this case, which is fairly common with Fractal cases, but I feel like they've kind of taken a few extra steps with this one, such as these solid panel expansion slot plates at the back. Or for anywhere where they've sort of covered up where you might have had sort of incidental airflow before, you also have lots of airflow in the places where they want it to be, such as a spot back here for potentially an exhaust fan or just natural exhaust from all of the intakes that it ships with. Up at the top you have a pretty standard mounting rails for 360 or 3x120 radiator or fans, or you can do 280 or 2x140 up there. And then our motherboard tray has all of these knockouts, which means it's back to front compatible or reverse connector compatible for motherboards that meet this standard, and there's options from MSI, Asus, and Gigabyte out there. They also have another pass-through area right here, which does have a grommet, so you can pass the cables through in an aesthetically pleasing manner. And then a few more knockouts at the top up here for passing through like your CPU supplemental power and RGB connectors and that sort of thing. Flipping the case around, we have a rear side panel that also has ventilation and that also pops off quite easily. Down here's your main cable management area as well as your power supply. It's going to be rotated 90 degrees, so your intake for the power supply fan will be right there. Pre-bundled cables, you can see they all have a nice white finish on them, and that actually also applies to the Ion 3 Gold power supply that we just did a little unboxing of. It actually even has a white AC power cable for the back of it, which I feel like is one of those touches that I never see with power supplies. But as far as cabling goes, we're not going to need any sleeved extensions or anything like that because everything's going to match. Then we also have this bracket here where you can mount 3 SATA SSDs or 2.5-inch drives. And then this is probably the best example of the fans for the side intakes being angled, as you can see, versus the side of the case here, which is flat. And these are of course RGB fans, and they are pre-wired, so that's helpful as well since RGB wiring can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. And then of course also for cable management we have some pre-installed Velcro straps. In the box we have a separate piece here that is the top panel with the grill on it. This has magnets all around the sides, so you just pop it on the top like that. And the magnets help hold it in place with a little catch at the back there, so you can pull it off as necessary. Then rounding things out, we have I/O with a single USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-C, a single USB Type-A. It's also got an LED controller, so you can use those buttons to control the LEDs versus connecting it to your motherboard. That can be convenient. A mic, headphone jack, and your power button. All right, we're ready to build the computer now. While we do that, I'm gonna share some snippets of the conversation I had with Wendell, just asking some really basic introductory questions for anyone who might be building a PC that they wanna install Linux on. Is there anything special to keep in mind? Wendell does a great job of breaking that down. All right, so I'm here with Wendell of Level 1 Techs because I am very cautious about going ahead with anything, and I try to take things slow and I try to feel things out. And I figured if I'm going to dive into Linux, I have some good contacts. I have some good people who are very familiar with that and who can provide me with some feedback and some direction as to where to go. So Wendell, thank you for talking to me today.
We're here for you. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. We got some experiments to do, but I think it'll be great. Okay, I'm down for some experiments. I'm starting out from where I am comfortable. I'm building a system, but in terms of the hardware, that was my first question for you is, are there any special like hardware requirements or recommendations for anyone who's just generally speaking doing a Linux build? Is compatibility pretty broad at this point? Compatibility is pretty broad, and the places where incompatibility shows up typically is networking. Like the Wi-Fi, it doesn't quite work perfectly because it's a MediaTek chipset. Not always. I mean, MediaTek gets a bad rap. MediaTek can be good. Wired networking can also be a little tricky, but it's also kind of a dumpster fire on Windows too. Like Windows Update, there's like different implementations of like Realtek's various 2.5 gig NICs. It's like, oh, you get the Windows Update, and it's like, oh, I don't have a link anymore. And it's like, oh yeah, this motherboard implements it slightly differently. Linux has got to deal with all that too. The other place you can run into trouble is sleep and wake. Sleep and wake doesn't always work great, and that's pretty motherboard dependent. So, and from reviews, I know, it's like, how every time a CPU is launching, it doesn't matter if it's Intel or AMD, there's like the board from Asus or MSI or Gigabyte or ASRock, and like that's their launch board, and then they have all the other boards. So those boards generally are the boards for Linux. ASRock has an excellent track record of Linux support and BIOS support for Linux things. Asus is pretty good too. There's a little uneven support for things like RGB controllers and sometimes USB controllers. These are not really things you have to concern yourself with if you stick to let's call it the mainstream boards. Also, like the cheapest boards, those also tend to work really well on Linux because those are sold in volume. And also the people that use Linux probably bought the cheapest thing they could get their hands on, and so those get debugged first.
Okay, well that makes sense. With that in mind, when you said that compatibility is generally not too much of an issue, I do have wired networking in the office, so I can plug in, but I want to also be accounting for people who might be using Wi-Fi and then the potential update or upgrade to 5 or 10 gig networking in the future. So this is the ROG Strix X870-A gaming Wi-Fi, X870 motherboard. Hopefully, since it's Asus, maybe that'll be okay.
Yeah, it's Intel 2.5 gig Ethernet, so your wired Ethernet, you should be all set there. In these uncertain supply chain times, like it's just whatever Wi-Fi 7 solution we can get. So you roll the dice a little bit. We've had that on workstation motherboards too. So like, oh, here's my $700 high-end workstation motherboard. It's like, am I going to get an Intel 10 gigabit or a Broadcom 10 gigabit or a Realtek 10 gigabit? You don't know. It can vary from this board to board in the same SKU? Yeah. Well, they change it a little bit, and it's like, oh, this is Rev 2. And it's like, why didn't you tell me it was Rev 2?
Yeah. Sounds like at least my wired solution should be okay there.
Yep.
Okay, and then I guess the next question would be in terms of the Linux installation. Linux has lots of different distros. My editor Joe has recently been trying Nobara because he said it works great with DaVinci.
That is awesome. If he has already got some mileage testing out Nobara with DaVinci, and DaVinci sort of works as advertised, DaVinci is awesome, and it is very solid software. And I think DaVinci gets an unfair reputation knock for Linux support when it's really probably the distro or like underlying software plumbing. But I'm just giving you full disclosure on like the kinds of things that you could run into. And it's probably not as big of a deal as you think. If you run into an issue with Nobara for DaVinci, like if that's more important, you're not really giving up very much on the gaming side if you were to switch to Rocky, because we know that Rocky should work correctly with DaVinci.
I think that's all the questions I have just to get started. I would love if we could come back and maybe do a rehash on this after I've gotten a couple months of usage under my belt, and I can give a little bit more hands-on feedback and everything. But I think we've got a good solid footing for getting the build up and running.
Well, I think also, keep me in the loop as you encounter stuff, because if we can capture that and distill it down into, a how-to, it's like, oh, I ran into one small problem. It's not abandon ship, let's change distros. But it does give us some idea of like, okay, this is a thing that needs to be fixed, or this is a thing we should smooth over, or this is something that somebody encounters that doesn't want to deal with the minutia of X. Can we offer a better path to A, B, C, X, Y, Z? And I am more than happy to try to help build that or put it together, or, do what I can to raise attention with the appropriate people in the community. So like, as you encounter stuff, your suffering may reduce the suffering of the people that come after you. And let's close the loop on that process, and I'm here to help do that as well.
I like that. Okay, that's good. If me suffering can help others, then I don't mind it one bit. I'll fight through it.
Honorary computer janitor.
Excellent. Perfect, you guys. If you guys aren't familiar with Wendell, Level 1 Techs is his YouTube channel. He also has a website and forums and everything, and he is great at everything he does.
It's because of the suffering.
Because of the suffering, of course. Long suffering. Okay, thanks, Wendell. All right, this has been a fun build to put together. The case is very nice. It's very clean. It's very easy to build in. There's lots of space. I was looking at it and thinking that Fractal's selling this case for about $100. It includes 4 fans. It seems like pretty good in terms of build quality. Did they skimp anywhere? And I found where they skimped. It's with the USB Type-C connector. That's just a 5 gigabits per second port, which means actually both of those top ports run off the single USB 3.0 cable, which is totally fine. But for anyone who really wants USB 3.2 Gen 2, do note that you will need to switch that cable out. But here we go, doing a little bit of test boot. I hope you guys enjoyed the bit of a conversation that I had with Wendell. It actually went a bit longer than what you guys heard in this video, so I'm gonna post an unlisted version of our entire discussion, so that'll be linked in the video's description if you'd like to hear a little bit more. But now with the power switch turned on, I got some RGB LEDs, which is good. And we appear to have a functional system. Fans are spinning, we got some lights, we got some RGBs, so fantastic. The comfortable part of this build, putting it all together, seems to be successful so far. Now we move on to the next step. As discussed with Wendell, we're gonna go for Nobara as far as the Linux distro that we're installing, and that is specifically because Nobara is set up to make ease of use with DaVinci Resolve very easy to use, I suppose. And we're definitely gonna be doing video editing as well as some gaming, and gaming is another thing that Nobara is supposed to be quite good at. I won't say much more than that because the hands-on experience comes next, but I am gonna get Nobara installed on this and up and running, sort of the gateway to the next steps with this build. I wanna say a big thank you to Wendell though for joining me today with a little bit of a Q&A and also offering his assistance for the future, because I'm probably gonna be asking him a bunch more questions as I actually start using this system with Linux. We are far enough along that I can do a quick peel here though to finish things off. And given the sort of random parts that I was picking to go into this build, it turned out to be very matchy-matchy, all white, and quite a nice looking system. The question I have is gonna be, if I wanna control those RGB LEDs, is that gonna be difficult at all? I'm not sure, I will find out. But if you guys are interested in my follow-up on this, definitely subscribe if you're not already. I'll post links to the parts that I used to build this system down in the video description below. A big thank you to Fractal Design for sending over the Pop 2 Vision case and Ion 3 gold power supply that were used today. A big thank you to Joe for his help with the filming and editing of this video, and thank you to you guys for watching. One last plug for my store. If you'd like to help support my channel, head over to paulshardware.net where we have shirts, mugs, pint glasses, and all manner of high quality merchandise. That is all for this one though. A final thank you to Wendell for helping us out today, and we'll see you all in the next video.